Here we go. 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 Yeah. I love this episode so much. What's up, my know-it-alls? This is the Mr. Know-It-All Show. And of course, we're reviewing the Book of Boba Fett, Chapter 5, The Return of the Mandalorian. Oh, dude, I can't even right now. I am just utterly beside myself with how incredibly awesome this entire episode is. So, okay, let's be fair. We probably shouldn't even call this the Book of Boba Fett. This is really kind of, I believe this is Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni cheating. And this is really like the Mandalorian Season 2.5 episode 1, because and right out the gate, well, first off, hold on, I have come to realize I just kind of jump into these things, so spoilers, hopefully that helps. The episode begins pretty much right. We didn't even go back to Boba Fett yet. The episode begins with in what looks like a butcher shop or the back room of some New Jersey butcher place, and there's these dog-faced alien guys kind of just walking around doing some stuff. And the next thing you know, out of the back, as we kind of move in, you see through some plastic tarp, because that's what a galaxy far, far away would have. Why not? You see the Mandalorian, Mando, walk in. And you hear that little, little sound of the song. It's so good. It's chef's kiss. It's so good. And so he kind of walks through. Everyone's kind of giving him looks like, oh, whatever. But they're all walking around doing their job. He gets through and he goes straight into this boss guy, and they're talking. And he's like, yeah, I'm looking for such and such. And the dude's like, what do you want with him? And they're talking back and forth. So he's like, all right, well, I'll let him know you came. And so, of course, Mando's like, sorry, Din Djarin. Let's be respectful. So Din Djarin says, yeah, I see him. And he throws his little bounty puck on the dude's desk. And it's dude. Dude tries to play the whole race card and is like, it don't even look like me. Now, mind you, to be fair, he's surrounded by like 6 other guys who arguably look like him. But they look like him in the same way that humans all look alike. So it's just kind of it's a neat little cultural dig, which I thought was totally cool. Anyway, suffice it to say, he gets to a fight, Mandalorian gets to a fight with these guys, and next thing you know, as he's fighting them, he whips out the Darksaber. I was just like, oh, you just throwing this into your repertoire, huh? And as he's fighting this guy, all of a sudden, he does a move, or he tries to do a move, and you can tell he's kind of awkward with it, and he slices open his thigh, like literally takes not even like a slice. I mean, he literally just lops off. When I say slice, it's like the way you lop off ham from a, ham. Anyways, so he just took off an entire layer of his thigh, but he continues to fight through, obviously, and he defeats everybody. That's when you get your title sequence and the episode title, Return of the Mandalorian. So we then cut to a really cool sci-fi concept, and I kind of love about Star Wars, at least the Star Wars that George Lucas was doing, but at the same time Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau have picked up, which is we get to see what's called a habitat ring. A habitat ring is a big sci-fi concept that essentially says if you can build an artificial sort of environment on the inside of a ring. The ring itself is spinning, which creates faux gravity, centrifugal force gravity. So it's not really gravity, you're just kind of but you don't notice because you're going so fast and you're in space And so, but it's very interesting. So there's a little bit of, there's like little pockets of atmosphere, and I guess what looks like light, I'm assuming it's some sort of daylight or whatever, continues to kind of move through the thing. So it's either, it isn't night or day for any given length of time. It's just sort of a revolving thing. Anyway, really neat. It was neat to kind of see the thing in real life, or at least represented rather in real life. And then, of course, we cut to Mando walking the streets of this area. And he goes into what looks like some kind of a casino, or not casino, some sort of a bar, entertainment, nightclub thing, whatever. And you see the people who hired him to get that creature's head, the bounty, and he's trying to get information specific. They want to hire him for something else. He's like, yeah, whatever. Anyway, so he gets his money, he gets the location of something, and then proceeds to go in search of this thing. Now, I'm telling you, as he's walking, they do this really cool trick. So for those of you who playing at home who don't necessarily know all the ins and outs of this stuff, The Mandalorian was shot, or was Jon Favreau and the people who did The Mandalorian, they ended up putting together what's called the volume. The volume is an egg-shaped circular video wall that's 360, a big round room, video ceiling, video walls. And it creates both an immersive environment and a what's called ambient light or natural light environment, meaning you don't have to bring a whole lot of extra lights. Like right now, I'm being lit by this light, these lights, and those colored lights behind me. Those are physical lights. The way the volume works, it's a giant circular round video wall, and you can increase the intensity of the LED walls, panels. So for instance, if it's supposed to be sunlight, then it looks like sunlight. It's bright and it does what it's supposed to do, and you get these great... Now, you can play with some of that a little bit, but for the most part, you get a really cool lighting. Anyway, not since the prequels have I seen a fully immersive CGI environment on the level that I see it in I almost said The Mandalorian. In Book of Boba Fett, Episode 5. Because he does this thing where he walks... So the way they did it, he's on... an elevator or escalator, whatever you want to call it. He's in a turbo lift thing. Sorry, Star Trek fans. He's in an elevator. The elevator goes up. It's got glass windows. You can see kind of outside as things are moving. He walks through the room, has a conversation, walks back. Then he's in the elevator. Now, I don't think the elevator is going anywhere. It's the environment that's programmed to play an elevator. So you get to see everything move. And I believe either they hid the seam, which is totally possible, or they got really good crew and people who, as he's standing there waiting, because we get to see him kind of just standing around waiting, they're changing and swapping the set out. The cast is leaving. The people who are the extras are gone. And you end up with him. Then he walks off. And now the volume out the exterior looks like the environment that we saw. So you get this really cool practical thing going on. No green screens. It's great. Anyway. Sorry. That's me geeking out and nerding out over technology. So, as he's going through this down area, he changes to infrared view, and you can see these little signs, and the signs look like the T on his mask, on a Mandalorian's mask. And eventually, he gets to the actual symbol of the Mandalorians. So when he gets down there, I see someone from far away, and I'm like, "Oh my goodness, it's her!" By the way, spoilers all the way for the Mandalorian Seasons 1 and 2, because you're about to hear some cool stuff. So. It's the blacksmith. It's the Mandalorian blacksmith. I'm sure she has a name. Unfortunately, I have not been privy to it just yet. She survived. So it's like, all right. Anyway, so he comes down, he stumbles down, and she's like, help him. And it's the same the same Mandalorian who helped him with the beginning of season 1 and also at the end of and whatnot, who was in the culvert. The big thick one, voiced by Jon Favreau, though he's trying to, it's weird, he added a filter this time, so it's sort of making him sound a little bit deeper. It's unnecessary completely, but you can totally tell it's still Jon Favreau. Might even be Jon Favreau in the suit if he's looking to cosplay, because I'm sorry, Jon Favreau ain't as little as he used to be in this particular Mandalorian. A little thick around midsection. Anyway, so he helps him and whatnot, and she asks, hey, what created this? What did this injury? And he says this, and he holds up the Darksaber. And she apparently knows quite a bit about the Darksaber. And so she proceeds to tell a little bit more about its history. And so, and she's talking all about, the only people that can take it, that are allowed to wield it are someone who wins it in battle. And if they win it by creed, if you will, in combat, then you have the right to ask to or try to lead the Mandalorians. I'm like, okay. Anyway. So him and the other guy, who we find out, by the way, is name dropped. Vizsla is the name of this particular Mandalorian. Vizsla. For those of you playing at home who are... Now this, unlike some of the other Star Wars Legends stuff that I don't know, the last name Vizsla, I do know. Come to find out, Vizsla, the House Vizsla, are the ones who forged the Darksaber. Now, they didn't use it, and they didn't wield it, and they weren't the leaders of Mandalore and all that stuff, but they're the ones who forged it. Pretty darn impressive. And very, very cool little name drop. And so then, him and Vizsla move her heating thing up there and whatnot, and they proceed, and her and the Mandalorian proceed to talk, and she's telling the story. She's telling the story of the Darksaber and kind of what happened. And they decide that they're going to... He has the Beskar spear, and she asks about it. He tells her the story of Ahsoka and how she gave it to him. She then decides he decides he wants something made for a foundling. Because she's like, what do you want to make out of it? Because Beskar's not supposed to be used as a weapon. So they take the spear, and she starts to melt it down. And he says, I want to make something for Grogu, a foundling. And she's like, okay. I don't know yet, but they show that she made these little rings. I think she might have made Grogu a chainmail shirt made out of Beskar, which would be, for a teeny tiny little Jedi, the greatest armor ever. So, yeah, and so anyway, so during this, she proceeds to talk about the kind of what happened in the Great Purge and the Night of 1,000 Screams and the whole thing, and you get to see this nightmare sequence of essentially what happened. You get to see the history of Mandalore, what happened when the Empire came in, and there's swarms of these TIE bombers, because they're not TIE fighters, it's the little more compact one, and they're just wrecking Mandalore. And you see the KD model, the killer droids that we saw in Rogue One. And there's a slew of them. And then you get to see this really nice wide shot. And it's all these killer droids that the Empire has. And they're just like, just laying waste. And you see Mandalorian helmets everywhere. It's a gruesome shot. Cut back to the quote unquote present. And you see Din and the blacksmith are fighting. They're exercising or whatever. And I think she's showing him moves because she's calling out names of things. And then she proceeds to ask him to reciprocate. And he can't. Every swing, the sword gets heavier. And she tells him, she's like, well, you're fighting the sword. You're not going to be able to do this unless you have to go with the sword. You're not mentally strong enough. It has nothing to do with physicality. It's all mental. I thought it was very cool. Nice little bit of wisdom. That's when Vizsla decides to step out around the corner and is like, maybe it's because you're not the right person to wield it. And that's when he calls out. He's like, look, my people, my house forged this thing. I want it back. So she proceeds to let them go ahead and duel. And as he's dueling, they're whatnot, and finally it ends with Din holding Paz at his throat with a vibro blade, and she calls the fight. And essentially, Mando won, keeps his sword. Then she asks the questions that she asked in The Mandalorian. She says, "Have you ever had your mask? Have you ever removed your helmet?" And he proceeds to be, well, it's not pretty. Because he has to tell the truth. she says, well, then you're not a Mandalorian anymore. And he's like, well, how am I going to do this? Anyways, this whole episode literally is the first episode of The Mandalorian Season 3 as far as I'm concerned. So Din decides he has to leave rather, and so he gets on a space cruiser, space liner. The space liner, he has to give up his weapons to get on the space liner because he's got a flight coach. And so he proceeds to. It's great because it reminds you of the TSA. He's taking his stuff out, and he's kind of like, "Jeez Louise, man! Everybody's just waiting for me." And he's just putting it's one thing after another, after another, after another. And anyway, so finally he gets on the thing. And he's just sitting there, and there's a little kid in front of him, a Rhodian kid, who looks behind him, and you can totally tell because then he takes out the little whatever the bundle is that she made. Again, I think it's a Beskar chainmail shirt. And then we see he arrives back on Mos Eisley, where he meets his mechanic lady, who apparently has a ship for him. He makes it sound like he thought she had a Razor Crest, and she's like, no, I had a replacement for a Razor Crest. It's an old Naboo fighter, like from the prequels, the yellow ones. Anyway, and it's all wrecked up and whatnot. And at first he's kind of like, what is this nonsense? Eventually she convinces him, hey, let's at least get the parts. They got some Jawas. They got him looking for some stuff. Anyway, and over time they build the thing, and finally they truck it out, and it's gorgeous. And then he takes it for a test flight. That thing is so stupid fast. It's ridiculous. Eventually two New Republic fighters, police, if you will, come out alongside, and they're like, hey, what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And one of them is the same dude from The Mandalorian, because again, this is Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 1, as far as I'm concerned. And so he puts this little afterburner, like his nitro, his sublight drive, and it like blasts him away. Anyway, gets back to his mechanic's garage, and that's where Fennec Shand shows up. Now the show becomes Book of Boba Fett, Chapter 5. She shows up. She says, hey, you want to hire you? Throws him some money. He's like, hey, it's on the house. Y'all are good people. You helped me out before. And so, and then that's it. Roll credits. So, and he says, I have to go visit someone first. I'm sitting here going, did we just get into The Mandalorian Season 3 for real? Like, are we going to see, is Episode 6 going to be him going to give Grogu the Beskar chainmail? I mean, anyways, the first thing I'm thinking is, does this series have time for this? All right, and real quick, this episode, because of course it's a 10 out of 10. It's got it's basically, like I said, The Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 1. 10 out of 10 on the Know-It-All Index. Absolutely 10 out of 10. It's beautifully shot, wonderfully done, and it's funny, this feels like the show that we all love in The Mandalorian. So again, any stutter stepping happening in Book of Boba Fett, who knows? I'm excited to see what they're doing. I love the universe that Favreau and Filoni have gone into. I feel like their backdoor are going to eventually give us some really, really neat Jedi stuff, and I'm definitely here for that. So, all right, listen, this review is going to went a little bit long because I had to go explain some things, but like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think about everything going on, and that's it. There you go. So now you know, and if knowing is half the battle, then you're halfway to being a know-it-all yourself. All right, guys, we'll see you next week, again, for the Book of Boba Fett, Chapter 6. Stick around. Never forget, everyone loves a know-it-all.